Before the video starts, please like, subscribe, and comment. Any interaction will help me greatly. My goal is to reach 1,000 subscribers by January 2026. And also please watch until the very end, it's the least I ask for, thank you.
The bad boy is one of the most overused character tropes in fiction. They're loud, angry, reckless, and usually written to be cool first and human second. But every once in a while, a character comes along who actually gets it right. Mondo Owada isn't lovable in spite of his anger. He's lovable because the story treats that anger like a flaw, one with consequences. And today, we're breaking down how Danganronpa accidentally wrote one of the best bad boys in the franchise. To understand why Mondo works as a lovable bad boy, you have to start with where he comes from, and how that past shapes his personality instead of excusing it. Mondo Owada grew up with his older brother, 𝙎𝙤𝙘𝙞𝙖𝙡 Owada, who played a major role in shaping his values. 𝙎𝙤𝙘𝙞 raised Mondo with the belief that strength came with responsibility, and Mondo mentions that his mother would never tolerate him hitting a woman, reinforcing that despite his delinquent image, he wasn't raised without moral boundaries. During his childhood, Mondo owned a Maltese dog named Chuck, whom he cared for deeply. Chuck would bring in the newspaper every morning and constantly begged Mondo to take him on walks. Chuck later passed away at the age of 9, and Mondo becomes noticeably emotional when speaking about him, revealing an attachment he rarely shows to others. Mondo became involved in biking at a young age through his brother, joining the Crazy Diamonds after 𝙎𝙤𝙘𝙀 invited him into the gang. Although he was inspired by 𝙎𝙬𝙀, Mondo struggled early on, often riding at the back of the group and even being caught by police during one incident. Despite this, he gradually rose through the ranks through perseverance and effort. Eventually, Mondo and 𝙎𝙬𝙀 became known as the Diamond Brothers, a well-known name across Japan. Mondo later became the second leader of the Crazy Diamonds, which by then had grown into Japan's largest biker gang. When 𝙎𝙬𝙀 planned to retire, Mondo challenged him to a race during the retirement celebration to prove he was worthy of leadership. During the race, Mondo acted recklessly and veered into oncoming traffic. 𝙎𝙬𝙀 pushed Mondo out of the way, dying in the resulting collision. Although 𝙎𝙬𝙀's final wish was for Mondo to continue leading the gang without blaming himself, Mondo concealed the truth of the incident from the other members and continued to lead the Crazy Diamonds, carrying the guilt privately. Mondo presents himself as a stereotypical delinquent, foul-mouthed, aggressive, and easily provoked. When Makoto first meets him, he keeps their interaction brief, recognizing that Mondo's temper can flare depending on what is said. This is especially evident in Mondo's interactions with Byakuya, whose condescending attitude frequently provokes violent responses from him. Much of Mondo's aggression stems from a deep fear of being perceived as weak. Like Chihiro, he struggles with a strong inferiority complex, particularly due to living in his brother's shadow. Mondo frequently reassures himself of his own strength, using anger as a way to suppress his insecurities. Mondo also admits that he becomes nervous around girls he likes, often raising his voice unintentionally and driving them away. This suggests that beneath his rough exterior, Mondo is socially awkward and unsure how to behave outside of confrontational situations. Despite his abrasive demeanor, Mondo displays moments of emotional vulnerability. When discussing his childhood dog, Chuck, he becomes visibly upset and leaves the conversation, something Makoto notes he has never seen from him before. In his free time events, Mondo also reveals anxiety about his future, believing his options after high school are limited. He ultimately expresses a desire to become a carpenter, explaining that he wants to start creating things instead of destroying them, indicating a wish to reform and move away from violence. Mondo's anger is never presented as something admirable or stylish. While his aggressive behavior makes him intimidating, it also creates distance between him and the people around him. Other characters are wary of him, conversations escalate quickly, and his temper often makes situations worse rather than resolving them. The story consistently frames his aggression as a liability, not a strength. Although Mondo's past provides context for his behavior, the narrative never uses it as an excuse. His guilt over 𝙎𝙬𝙀's death is something he carries internally, and he does not attempt to shift responsibility onto anyone else. Mondo understands that his inability to control his anger is his own failing, and this self-awareness is what separates him from more shallow interpretations of the bad boy archetype. Importantly, the story does not protect Mondo from the consequences of his flaws. He is not redeemed through another character, nor is his behavior softened or justified to preserve his likability. His mistakes are allowed to matter, and the narrative treats them seriously rather than glossing over them for the sake of maintaining his image.
Stop.
Chihiro's death is the moment where everything about Mondo's character comes to a head. His fear of being perceived as weak, something he has carried since living in his brother's shadow, is pushed past its limit. Mondo doesn't act out of malice or premeditation, but out of panic and insecurity, and the story makes it clear that this is the natural escalation of his unresolved flaw. This moment isn't framed as justified or understandable, it's framed as tragic, showing exactly what happens when Mondo loses control in the way he has always feared. What truly defines Mondo's character is what comes after. He does not attempt to excuse his actions, shift blame, or diminish what he did to Chihiro. Instead, he openly takes responsibility and accepts the consequences without resistance. The narrative does not redeem him or soften the outcome, it allows his guilt and accountability to stand on their own. This aftermath reinforces that Mondo's story is not about forgiveness, but about ownership of one's mistakes. Mondo Owada works as a character because his arc is consistent from beginning to end. His backstory, personality, flaw, and outcome all align without contradiction. The story does not protect him, glorify him, or rewrite his actions to preserve his likability. Instead, it commits fully to who he is, allowing him to be flawed, self-aware, and ultimately human. That level of narrative commitment is what makes Mondo feel believable and memorable, even with limited screen time.